So sorry, this chat is not working. It seemed. Ace King here. Kind of tricky spot, because when this guy 3x's, he's probably not folding that often. But at the same time he might, and if he does fold, then it's pretty horrible in a way that... because he seems kind of fizzy also, so he might be using 3 PP as standard. So the coaching is going to be about 6 max. 6 max SNGs. And I have some of the 9 men's running currently. But we'll be starting just 6 men's. Actually this one is last one running now, so... So if the stream is working, you could comment on the English chat. Talk Finnish at the first, I think, at least at some point, so sorry about that. But the stream should be running and audio should be heard. And I will be starting the 6-man games. I will be playing super turbos and turbos. And as you can see, site is currently PokerLoco, where I've been playing this month. And ace 9, I'm obviously shoving if it's unopened. And I think against this guy I have to go with the ace 9 because he's my direct opponent, and I think he has been really active on this sample, so he can have wide range of stuff in here. And we're ahead, but yeah. He hit the flop. But against, for example, against button I would have folded, because the ICM taxes would have been pretty high. Pretty high here. Well, see, looks really strong, but hopefully he will spew off his stack. And basically he should be just shoving that hand. It's just too big to be inducing in that spot. But probably would not have mattered at all. So ace deuce off. Well, these are the kind of hands that I'm usually just folding here, even though we are at the bottom, because usually these limpers, they never fold, or really rarely fold, so... And then... Then we just have... Well, the good side is of course that we are in position, but the hand playability is really weak overall with ace deuce off. So I don't... Especially in super turbos where the stacks are really shallow, there is not that much space to be making plays. I'm going to see bet here small, it's not that connected, so I should be successful decent amount of time, and I definitely want to try and protect my hand. And try to neglect his equity with all the huge amount of the range that still has the 2 overcards. And also if I checked here, it's going to be tricky calling turn bets often, because there are going to be different sort of draws coming on the turn really often, and so on. Okay, so Eki says that it's working. Well, the games are opening decently, especially when I'm mixing like 6-max and 9-max games. I could actually keep these in separate windows so it's easier to follow the games. So these are all super turbos now. Queen deuce, Raggy player. I'm just going to shove here. With the antes it's plus EV. It's not hugely plus EV, but if I'm expecting that he's going to be playing against me a decent amount of time if I try to min raise or limp, I'm decently happy to go with shove here with suited queen. But like queen deuce off, I wouldn't be shoving at least. And basically in super turbos, when stacks are decently shallow, there's not much point in using more than min raise overall. And he's shoving. I expect that he can have a lot of king x here, even some mid pockets, flush draws. Of course I'm not folding that one. Basically that is the worst option, that he has the flush draw, because he has, or of course if he happens to have set or 2 pairs, but, and of course this sort of guy, 56% of VPIP, he can have like king deuced here. It's totally in his range most of the time, but he will often also overplay stuff like mediocre top pairs and might have like ace-4 and so on. In here again, kind of board that I'm most of the time expecting decent amount of vault equity, and if turn is hard, we can then decide that do we want to. In here, pocket 8s are not going to be in that great of spade when they're, say, when there is min raise, and shove from early position seems kind of wrecky players from this really small sample, but pocket kings. But basically he can easily have, like, at the weakest I would often expect his hands really in the previous hands to have like maybe ace jack off or some pocket 7s or something, probably at the bottom of his range. So if we are only flipping or ahead of one combo or one hand like 6-hand combos from the weaker pockets, it's not going to be even closely enough. And of course the open raiser might have the nuts as well some portion of time. So, but something like pocket jacks I would have at least gone with 8 jack. Let's just fold. Well, it's quite close. If shoving would be okay. 9 jack, I would have shoved. And one thing to notice on this site is that Turbo Games doesn't have antes from the start, so that's kind of minus side in my opinion. Because there's much less value in stealing in early game, and basically the blind antes comes so late on the game that there's really, it's often that it's already like on the bubble or in the monies already when the antes actually come, because I think it was like, was it 100, 200 or something on the Turbo Games when the antes come, so and I could probably actually remove that chat from the stream because it doesn't have any meaningful stuff. Is that should be visible at least. Ace king, of course, snap calling. Okay shove from the villain as well. And check then suited, I'm going to be min raising here. Seems to be pretty, of course, small sample again, but Ace 5 suited. I could limp here actually. And Ace 6 I kind of have to call against that small stack. Well, I was thinking of limp shoving, but when he sizes his raise that huge, he's probably never folding. It's a decent hand here to have in limp shove range, but so if he had raised like 3 PP, I could have shoved over him, but he's never folding probably after that sizing. And here I already have half my stack in basically, so let's just go and hope our hand is somewhat alive at least. It seems we are actually ahead, which is kind of surprising. But overall in here, bottom left, when there was 2 really short stacks and I'm clear middle stack, it's not the greatest of spots to be open shoving either with that weak ace. And even in here it's kind of questionable because I can't really shove here profitably. Basically, so I could try to min raise and check if this guy shoves over me. But if you have a read that big stack is abusing heavily, 10 min raising is not going to be that great either. And it might quickly become that you want to just open fold that sort of hand. In here we don't improve. Let's try to bluff. And he checks again, 60 VP IP. I'm going to value bet the turn. Of course, kind of nasty if he happens to check raise, but should be really rare. And good shove by the small blind 6-7 here, but run into our monster. Egg 10, I'm definitely defending blind versus blind against active player. And basically in flop there's no point to do anything beside calling. Wow, nice move. Just awesome play by the villain, from my view at least. He should have check called his bottom pair definitely, but making that sort of shove will be just horrible. And basically in the upper right I have bluff catcher, ace. Well, he can have some a-highs flush draws, for example, and he's betting pretty small. I'm going to bluff catch this time. There is decent amount of busted draws he can have, and he's probably tricky enough to use that sort of sizing as bluff also. And of course I don't have to be ahead huge amount of time to make that plus EV, which is the most important point in general in those situations. So now I have two turbos and one super turbo, so let's add one more super turbo at least. Decent spot to be shoving quite widely here on the upper right, but of course I have no reason to be shoving total crap, like 10-7 off. But I think even like 10-7 suited would be kind of close, at least if these players are aware that there is quite decent amount of ICM. But at least something like 10-8 suited, 10-9 suited I would have been subbing here. And in here, Reki looking player, it's pretty decent spot to be. Could have also limped that Queen 8 when the villain seems quite active. But a lot of players, even in here, will be folding enough of those hands, that, especially when there is antes on the play as well, so they don't need to fold that much to make it plus EV to min raise a lot of stuff. King 10 off, even as middle stack it's going to be okay. Of course now we can't try to put ICM pressure that much on the big stack. But here we are actually quite close to break. Same stack with this other small stack. So 9-10 suited is definitely shoving hand, but again run into big hand tier. also ace-5 off from small blind, it's basically a hand that doesn't play well, and also I don't have position, and this guy is passive as well, so when he raises he more likely has strong range. And I'm definitely not going to be bluffing, 3-bet bluffing with the crappy ace against this sort of will lane. And in here, it's 14 pp half, but I'm pretty happily snap calling against this sort of guy. And one reason is obviously one we see here, that he can be way overplaying his hands. Against good player, the main problem would be that his range would not have that many weaker aces overall. He might have something like king queen suited, king jack suited, but and maybe some ace jack type of hands, but that's pretty much it. Ace 10 suited. But against that sort of fizzy looking guy, it's going to be a really easy call. And I'm not trying to limp or min raise against this PP with this sort of hand. King 6-8 is okay. This is the decently active rake. And the main part is that I have like 4-1 pot odds pre-flop for the call. Not the greatest of boards to bluff, even if it checks the turn. Now, I think it's best to be betting, but if he raises, I probably have to fold. Would have been way better for betting if it was not the club on the river, because now there was the danger that I might have the flush as well. Of course, if I check, he might think that I have really often some a-high or weak pair type of hand, so he might try to bluff me off, so that might be okay as well to check call. King 3 suited. Offsuit I would have just folded. And in here he's probably c-betting huge portion of time on this flop, so pretty mandatory check call. And he's betting big on the turn, so of course I can be ahead here, but the problem is that even if I'm ahead, he quite easily has good amount of equity. And there's also the possibility that he fires the river even if he's bluffing, so. And I also have decent amount of AX. I would not be check folding on that flop, so I will have AX on my range as well. So let's just give credit to that turn barrel. and not the most fold happy guy, and king deuce off is not going to be that great of hand. Quite similar spot. This guy is, from this sample at least, not defending huge amount of stuff, so I should have a decent amount of folding equity again. If I had something like nines, for example, there would be less reason to be c-betting, because there is less need to protect the hand, basically. Of course, if I think Villain would be defending so wide that he has good amount of, what was it, 4 or 5x on his range, then pocket nines might be even value c-bet, kind of. And of course, like c-betting the pocket threes here, it's not. We can get called by some a-high type of hands, for example, some draws. But the main point in c-betting for me is to try to get the pot down in spot where my hand is really vulnerable, and he likely won't be hitting the flop that often. Of course, if Villain is type that he might also check raise decent amount of air type of hands, then it becomes more questionable. That do we want to be c-betting? And a7 off against active player, I would be quite often shoving as well, but folding is definitely too weak. And when he bets pot size, I think I can't really be folding here. And there is a lot of draws, so I'm just going to be check shoving. Well, that was kind of nasty flop. Queen deuce I could have tried to limp. And king queen I'm going to be calling. One of the nasty parts on this side is basically that client seems to have some, at least for me, it has some problems with the card graphics. So if I try to resize the table, it tends to get like the graphics will get distorted, so to say. So for the stack and tile, I had to make new layout from the earlier I had used in the PokerStars and 888 Poker. So I had to make the tables bit bigger than they were earlier on the other side. So three players, of course, really dry flop, but these guys are probably not the most happy guys to be folding. In here I'm just going to be check shoving. Of course, when he c-bets, he probably quite often, or should have quite often something, but I still have such monster hand that I can't be really folding. And on the flop I have the most equity with my hand, so 10-8 off. Well, that's pretty nice. So especially in these like €5 games, €10 games, there is going to be a huge amount of these fizzy guys. And tight looking player defend, so this is not going to be the best type of flop for me. He will quite easily have something, and looks like this guy probably sit out on the upper right, so I'm not going to be waiting anyone if they sit out. Seven, 6 off, pretty tight small blind, so, and hand that has some playability, so it's going to be okay to see bet or open. And this guy does 3-bet, so let's just fold. Basically, I hoped to be willing to fold on the upper left. He min bets, well, let's call that one. Okay, so he had gut shot on the flop. Overall, really passive looking player, so he's really often going to be checking flop if I check, so that's the main reason I went for leading with my middle pairs here to protect and get value. And on the upper right, this player is probably folding so much that even any two shoves are pretty easily profitable. But still, I'm going to be folding the crappiest of hands. Pocket deuces, I'm definitely going to be shoving if this small blind doesn't 3-bet. Well, he's probably not folding that often, but I'm the clear short stack here with the pocket fours, so let's just go with the hand. Shoving that flop. Well, he most likely doesn't have made flush. Looks like draw really often, so let's go. Oh, too late. Too late. Of course, the problem is that even if he has just draw, he's going to have pretty good amount of equity anyway. But I still think that, well, it's probably quite close because he can be kind of overprotecting some of the better made hands. This guy's probably not raising me light here. And he does raise. And now let's hope this guy 3-bets, but no. Pocket fives is kind of tricky hand here on the upper, on the right table, that when there is kind of active players behind, but I can't really be raise calling anyone 3-bet, and I don't have any blocker value and so on, so it's not really that great hand to be open raising. He checks the flop. I probably don't have that much fold equity on the turn, because, well, he's definitely not folding any AX, and I think his range is going to be weighted towards showdown value hands. He's not probably checking like 10-9 here or something like that. This can be also questionable open range, but raise folding doesn't really hurt my stack here that much. If they flat, I might still win decent amount in heads up pot by c-betting. And good amount of time if there's multiple opponents calling, I'm going to be check folding. Well, this is kind of, I think this 3-bet is most of the time by really strong range. At least from his statistics and so on, I would expect so. So even if I hit like ace, there's going to be decent amount of danger. He has better kicker or some big pocket and so on. And on the bottom right, this guy most likely has capped range, so I think I kind of have to call with the king queen, because he's so active as well. But that could be also a good hand to be checking with all them resources, that how wide he has to be playing for shoving. Cold 3-bet call by this wreck. Well, kind of feels nasty, but can I give him enough credit to be hero folding that? Yeah. Well, sucking out is always option. Wasn't really surprised, but I don't know if I can still fold profitably on that spot. So pre-flop it was limped. I could bet for value or check and give him rope to if he is floating, because he hasn't been folding huge amount either, so he might try to make plays. King 7, okay. I'm just checking the queen here. Seems kind of tight from that small sample, so let's just try to min raise. He calls. No. It's just that if he has tight range, he's not going to be folding often at all to c-bet here, most likely. And sevens, of course, calling. And this button can have premium hands as well, but with this stack depth and most of his range is going to be weak stuff, I'm definitely going to be shoving that one. And there is also going to be some portion of these Broadway hands they like to limp call that I'm a bit ahead. But mostly I'm looking for getting folds fit that shove. It's probably not folding, so there's not much point in shoving here. But I definitely can't fold with all of the outs. Of course there is some, well, by shoving on the turn I might, some portion of time he might have some draw that is actually behind my hand, so that's one of the benefits by shoving, but I don't really think it's often enough the case. So I don't actually again have the tweet chat visible, so if you are commenting, please do it on the PokerLoco chat. And this guy is not 3-betting, so let's just shove that pocket 6 his hand. It's hand that if I think that villain is decently often 3-betting as well, I can also induce pretty nicely by min raising, but in here I'm going to try to get some value. It's pretty rare that the villain actually has better hand here, so And I would have called if he had bet the river, for example. And I think he called with a height here, or jack high. So at least the guy likes to call. Just folded. 5-6, I'm going to be shoving. This guy is most likely folding enough with the antes in the play. And against this sort of player, it would be also a good idea to limp some portion of the premium hands. And on the bottom left, I would have been shoving any two against the PP player. At least looks really trap heavy min raise by this button when he makes it with such small stack, and seems kind of possibly okay player. And basically c-betting ace-10 is kind of value bet on the upper right. I'm not expecting this guy to fold that much. And I pretty much can't be folding. On the split pot board. And at ace-5, I could have defended it on the upper right. Active player, but he's also opening from the UTG, so it's just kind of tricky hand that if you don't hit like two pairs, it's going to often have tough decisions post-flop, even if hitting like top pair. And I'm not usually trying to put pressure with this 8-5 suited hand here, because I have basically zero equity hand. Not much space to improve, but now I actually improved into. I'm going to bet relatively big here. Oh, so wow, that was misclick. I actually didn't notice that this was bottom had solved that, but well. Well, I went for pretty loose gold here. Nine, 10, I have to go against this small stack. I just get so great pot odds and hand has decent equity. And this on the bottom left, the villain can make bad calls, but at the same time, I really don't want to be raise folding or limp folding that great hand, blind versus blind with that stack depth. And try to min raise with my shallow stack to create a bit more fold equity. Deuce 5 suited, well, in Nash it wouldn't be shoving hand. But if he folds bit too much, then I think it's going to be okay with how shallow my stack is. But for example, if I know that I'm against decent opponent, I'm definitely not shoving that. Well, that was again also quite loose play by this guy, because basically with 10 pp I can have some hands that are behind his king jack, but overall my range is going to be pretty strong, and I'm going to complete good portion of the mediocre stuff, for example like 10-9 suited. Because I'm not in general necessarily expecting this limper to fold huge amount of stuff, even if his range is likely wide, but he can quite easily like limp call some queen then off, for example. So it's not really great spot for me to be like trying to steal the pot really wide, especially when I have that option for cheap or often cheap flop. Get 8, I'm just shoving here. course, it's ugly if the PP happens to be waking up with monster, but one of the good sides by shoving is that I don't expect if I raise like 450, this guy who limped is probably not going to be folding often at all, and it's just that pocket eights are so easily going to face like 2 overcards flops, and it's going to be quite easy, quite awkward situations with quite shallow stacks behind and so on. And basically shoving is always pretty clearly plus EV. With the pocket sevens, if both villains check, I see bet. Peloton, that's probably from Finland. And both calls, well, I definitely don't want to see bet again. There might even be some value in that. Now he donk bets. Let's call and evaluate the river. Of course, the problem is that I'm not really beating any, or shouldn't be beating any of his like turn value bet combos. So if we had bet here, folding should often be the best option. I'm also blocking possible straight draw combos from the villain pretty heavily. Expect that one, but well, we can see that they like to call pretty light. Calling that on three-way pot is not going to be that great. These maze on the water and Slopa Tutupan are wrecks. Wrecks here. So I think we play these. I can start some of the super turbos because these turbo speed can take quite a while, but I'm not starting any more turbo games. I think defending this is probably quite close against 3PP open. Even if we are in position with pretty deep stacks. Draw heavy board, so I prefer to use, or should be using, a bit higher sizing, and basically I shouldn't be c-betting that much. So that sort of stuff should be affecting our c-bet sizes. King deuce, I'm going to be shoving 5 PP on the upper right. In Nash it's probably bit minus EV, but in reality it's most likely kind of okay. But it's like if I had, for example, closer to 10 pp, I definitely would not be shoving king deuce off. This is similar hand that 10 pp deep I wouldn't be shoving. Well, this one I would be shoving even with 10 pp. Of course, it's third time in a row I shove, so they might think that it affects or whatever, but of course, if they really think like, no, I'm sitting out here. Like if we think that does it affect our range that we are shoving third time in a row, I think it's most likely tightens player range than widens it. But then again, some players might think that this guy is shoving all the time, so I'm calling now wider or something. This is basically a situation where villains shouldn't be min-raising. Or good players would have pretty polarized min-raising range, so against some players I might be snap shoving here, because if they don't have shoving range and so on, but it's probably decent, good enough to have shoving range and might have quite trap heavy min-raising range. So by flatting I also keep, like if he has polarized min-raising range, I also keep the crappy parts of his range in play. And shooter jack, I'm shoving. Is anyone following? At least no comments at all on this chat. Of course, it might be that people are commenting on the Twitch or something. King jack, well, definitely I don't fold here, but is it better to flat or shove? I'm going to be shoving because the flatting has kind of problem in that am I going to be just check folding if I don't improve? Because if this guy happens to have widest range, then for example that sort of hand, and flop comes something that doesn't hit me at all, and I'm then check folding, it's not going to be a great situation. And in here the PP is probably good enough to not call some sort of mediocre AX or something. I hope at least. Especially now as the stack is, his middle stack much more clearer, so he shouldn't be shoving that wide either. from the small blind, but of course I'm going to be calling with this big ace. But for example, if I have weak ace here, it's actually going to be pretty easily quite marginal and against good player actually folding hand. Nasty pot loosed here. Well, in here I don't really want to be shoving with this stack setup. Limping might be option. Let's try that one. Of course, now I open if the small blind folds. Big stack might try to get tricky, but he might also be kind of scared. So I try to bet here. He might be scared that I have some traps here when I don't shove, so I think I get him to fold pretty often. And again, if I get him to fold, even though the most likely hands are the weaker hands, it's going to still be good because I can't really bluff catch with that sort of. Could try to limp here, and well, seems like he had autofold on or something. One of the tricky parts here is that this guy might actually seems like he's sitting out, but it's not visible, at least most of the time on the client, which is pretty stupid in my opinion. And of course here, like ace king would be snap fold. Hopefully this guy drops out now. Yeah, he was most likely sitting out, but I didn't have any info on that. And 9 jack I'm up, of course, calling. A lot of outs, but no hit. Trying to get some really 3-betty happy guy. Let's try to limp. Still kind of hand that I don't want to just open fold. But raise calling would still be pretty loose one. Let's check and use it more as bluff catcher. Now he checks again, so I think he has. I would expect him to bet really often with made hand. But Super Turbo's not starting now, it seems. Hit the nuts this time. It looks kind of drawy, but it's not really that drawy overall if villain is not defending really wide. So when he check raises here, he might have flush draw sometimes, but I like to call here and try to keep his bluffing range on the play as well. Of course, now we hope that he actually has the flush. And he checks, so check behind and give him one more chance to bluff. Because he shouldn't have that much like overpairs here when he just flats pre-flop. Of course it's possible, but... And now he pots. Basically I have nuts still. If he has me beat, then so be it. I'm not sure what he had. 3-5, okay, so he was defending pretty wide. In here he gave huge spot odds for me, so if I was ahead like 1 out of 8 times, it's enough. On the upper left I might get him to fold some king x by betting, but I don't think I should be turning this sort of hand into bluff. Because it's not really that guaranteed that he would be folding. And this is actually with no antes on the bottom left right table. It's not going to be even hugely plus EV to be shoving, but from the options I have, I think shoving is still the best play. Is deuce enough? Well, of course I'm not betting, and if he's betting I'm going to be folding, because he's probably not taking this sort of line with bluff. Really active player, but he's also opening from hijack. This might be okay to shove here. Let's shove, because he's so active and this guy seems to be so call happy that I might have a huge amount of folding equity here. And he actually calls with 10 queen and hits his queen. Well, at least we got it in pretty great shape. Well, kind of scare card, but with this sort of stack to pot ratio, it's going to be pretty expensive to try and bluff, and he might not be folding even like 6x or something. I didn't actually think that he would have that much of 6 or 5, so I think c-bet is totally standard here, but not much point to continue when he does call. This guy haven't been raising so far single time, so he can have like easily AX for example here, or pretty much anything. So sometimes we might think that queen high might have showdown value in itself, but and of course it will have some, but not that huge amount. Well, that's like pretty much the most crappy turn card you can think of. And basically in here on the bottom table, I don't want to be min raising that wide here, because for one, this small blind rake is quite aggressive, and at the same time the PP doesn't most likely fold that often to min raises, so and now we have practical nuts on the blind versus blind, so let's hope he shoves. And king 4 suited, I'm going to be shoving. Let's spot control a bit. I could also see bet or bet the flop. There is good amount of draws to get value from, and he's probably not playing those aggressively. But yeah, let's play this one to the end and then quit. And basically from the early part I would expect that he's not going to be folding huge amount to see min raises in heads up either, so kind of interesting spot that could I get in him to fold enough of pair combos here. I think this sort of hand we can turn into bluff here. Wow, he actually checked with the straight. Well, let's try to min raise. See if he folds or not. And of course with these pot odds we pretty much have to be calling again. Yeah. So I suppose that is kind of value bet from the villain. Of course he can get caught by weaker aces. And pretty clear bet spot. Unfortunately he didn't have the ace. Well, I do have implied odds if I hit, probably because he's not afraid of backdoor flush. I might be ahead some small portion of time. Let's try to lead here. There is some turn cards I can improve my hand, like 7, 10, queen, 9, jack. But I can't really be check calling with this sort of hand, so. Let's bet third time. Mainly from 8x, some 3x. Not that many draws he could have, so shouldn't be a huge amount of point in check calling, because he's then going to be checking most of the weaker hands and betting better ones. This is kind of spot where I could try to overshove the river. If he has like 9, he might quite easily hero call. 10 is always calling. If he has plus, of course he's calling, but if he has busted draw, he's not going to be calling like even small bet. Now his sizing was a bit bigger than usual on the flop. This is kind of common thing on this side, that when the stacks are pretty deep on the start, also the heads up tends to be pretty deep stacks, which is, of course, it gives edge, but it's also kind of nasty often when you are multi-tabling, like good amount of tables, and then you have these marathon heads up sessions in tier, because heads up obviously will take good amount of focus. Well, I'm going to give up here, because I don't think he's going to be probably that wide raising my limp. Well, he's probably not folding if he has something like 8x, and I'm actually beating some of the busted draw combos. Oh, he had that great hand. But king is against, like, his range in fall is going to be kind of scary looking card usually. hit the same pair. Well, this sort of flop is going to have so easily stuff. This guy is not going to be folding, so I'm just giving up. He's not betting. Let's try to make thin value from some high card hands. Goes like if he has 10x or 4x, he would be betting those. So only sensible hand that probably beats me is mostly going to be like 5x. And again, really flop that connects or gives huge amount of his range something, so not too much point to be c-betting. But yeah, this seems to take quite good amount of time, so might also quit the streaming. Might not be the most interesting thing to watch. I have top pair here, but there's no point to be raising, especially with no kicker at all. But basically I can be folding at least on the 2 barrels. And if he's not making like some huge river bet, I'm not going to be folding to that either. Let's try to bet for value. Basically those min raises out of position or min 3 bets out of position doesn't really make any sense with any hand basically. And he min bets. Seems like some sort of blocker bet. So I think if I like shove here, he's probably not calling. But if I make it small, of course, against thinking player, it looks like really value line. But usually against random players, they often just call so much more often those small raises that it's going to be okay. He's actually folding so little that I should probably be giving up more of these unimproved hands. And yeah, looks like pretty strong hand when he makes that sort of move. But I think I just can still get. He's most likely playing draws passively from what we have seen so far, so there is decent merit in. And practical nuts on the river. So there is a lot of busted draws if he has calling hand. He might be bluff catching quite easily. Well, he shouldn't have aces that much, of course he hasn't been 3-betting at all, but well, 7 is kind of ugly that is something he can easily have. And again, I can beat some of his bluffs. He's not folding better hands most likely. Or something like queen high flush draw. Or something king high might fold, but those are probably pretty much it. Now he again min raises. Of course, previous time he did so the pocket kings, so it might be that he has really strong range for that sort of play, and that might be, of course, it's tough to know that basically if he has mostly really strong stuff, then we can argue of folding more to those, but he seems to be quite actively doing it, so kind of hard to believe that he would have just monsters here. And 10x should be really unlikely combination. And I'm just going to solve this one. It could also be limped or min raised, but well, I think all options are okay. So this sort of marathon sessions are kind of ugly in my opinion, especially when you have those 10 other tables or something like that running. Well, if he has some made hand, he's going to be raise calling it, and if he has draw, he's probably going to call anyway. And kind of hard to see that he would have total air here, so turn shove make most sense, and if he has me beat, then there's really not. He's going to be winning anyway, basically. I'm not folding any reverse. So that was the pretty nice spot. It was actually $30 game, I think. But yeah, let's check our result. Actually, yeah, it's not possible because Poker Tracker can't get results from this site. But if I check cash here, I think I went up like 150 euros or something during the coaching session, so pretty decent. What's your hands? I didn't actually mark them at least, but if you remember some hands you want to be analyzed, you can comment it on the chat. But let's check hand report. At least there was that king queen hand I called that reg shoving like, was it 12 pp from the bottom. That's actually at least interesting one. I'm not sure if it was, I think it was offsuit, but yeah, it was this one. So it was like 13 pp shove. And the point in here is that I don't think he's going to be shoving premium stuff here. He knows that I can be re-stealing in this spot if he min raises, so when he shoves, he most often has some hand he's not, either he doesn't want to get called or he doesn't want to be raise folding it. So for example, some suited connectors might be small to medium pocket pairs or stuff like that, some AX. But if he has, basically I'm really surprised if I'm ever dominated against his hand when he shoves here. But of course that alone doesn't really make the hand good to call with. Okay, I forgot this one as well. You can't copy paste hand histories from this site, so at least on the Hold'em resources calculator. A lot of annoying things, and the reason is that at least they save hands in a pretty weird way. So that's, and also they don't save the result informations at all, so that's the reason why results can't be tracked, at least on this SNG games, and probably same applies on the MTT games. I suppose in cash game it works still, or I don't know if it shows the limit you are playing either here, or well, at least it can be calculated from the blind amount, blind size. So if villain is shoving this sort of range, we can only call around 10% and king queen off would be bit minus EV. I would assume, as I said, that he's most likely doesn't have good pocket pairs. He might be shoving these, especially if the small blind was more on the passive side, but I think something like 9s, 10s would most likely be min-raise calling hands, and same applies to these good AX. He might have small AX, probably not shoving these sort of, at least if he's good he's not shoving, especially without antes, any sort of smallest offsuit aces. So if we think his range is something like this, for example, let's check what the software says. So against that sort of range, it's pretty clear call. If we tighten a little bit, something like that. Now it's bit minus EV, but so most likely pretty marginal calling spot, and hard to say whatever it's good or not, but I don't think we can really tighten this sort of range from his shoving range. And of course we could also analyze this same spot with advanced hand and use the all in and like 2 pp and all in options, so that it now creates both ranges for button and so on. So this will so Hold'em resources will do the same sort of stuff here. I actually had calling in here as well, it seems, but was it allow flat or allow limping? Let's remove that one. So it would actually only make like some pocket pairs to shoving hands, but I think with this sort of stack depth he will have more stuff than just those. But yeah. So no comments, at least on the Poker iMania chat, so thanks for watching the stream, coaching, and good evening for whatever you are doing. Bye for now.